It is Christmas, and a married couple, Matt and Karen, decide to visit Matt's brother Steve unannounced. But when Steve doesn't respond to the knock at the door, Matt makes his way through the back door. He proceeds to the front door to open the door for his wife when he bumps into Steve, who is holding a gleaming, sharp knife. Steve is surprised, as he wasn't expecting anyone's company. However, instead of inviting Matt to stay, he asks him to leave. Matt is disappointed by his brother's behavior, and they get into an argument. Hearing them argue, Karen walks in and explains that it was her idea. Suddenly, the phone rings and Steve leaves the room, which eases the tension. It is revealed that Steve's mental health is not that good after a horrible incident, and he sees disturbing messages on the television static. Matt worries about his brother's well-being. The couple announces they are not going anywhere and not leaving him alone on Christmas. Steve gives in, and the three have a very awkward Christmas dinner, with Matt and Karen doing all the talking. But after a while, they run out of topics, and Matt excuses himself to visit the restroom to avoid the agonizing silence. Once Matt leaves, Steve tries to talk to Karen but is interrupted by another phone call. Steve reluctantly picks up the call and looks extremely scared. He soon returns to the table and asks Matt, who has returned from the bathroom, to talk privately. Steve tries to ensure that Matt trusts him before taking him to the padlocked door in the basement. Meanwhile, Karen, staying true to her name, starts snooping around the house and pulls out a box from underneath the bed that contains a gun. Karen rushes out of the room and meets Matt, who drags her to their bedroom. Matt looks nervous and tells Karen there is something wrong with Steve. He reveals that Steve has a man locked in the basement and worries that Steve might be dangerous. They cautiously make their way to the basement with Steve, who takes them to a door with a huge cross on it. There, they hear a man's deep voice calling for help. When Steve is confronted, he tells the couple the man he has trapped is no ordinary man, but the devil who has conjured himself into the shape of a man. He says he has seen the devil and he needs them to believe him. But he doesn't present that strong of an argument that would lead his brother and his sister-in-law to believe him. For a minute, Matt tries to entertain the idea that Steve has captured a devil in his basement, but it is so baffling that the three lose their perception of how to frame entire sentences, and seeing it go nowhere, Karen says she isn't going to be an accomplice in the crime and leaves the room. Matt follows and they discuss what to do next. Karen is clear in her intent that she doesn't want to throw away their chance of being a happy family by defending what Steve has done. So Matt suggests they help the man get out of there and try shutting him up by bribing him. Karen presses that they need to get mental help for Steve, to which his brother agrees. Matt goes to talk to Steve, who has poured himself a drink to calm his nerves. Matt joins him and they talk about their broken relationship before Steve hands Matt a book, postulating that the devil manipulates people into committing evil acts. But by trapping the devil, he has trapped the seed that might lead to the birth of evil ideas. He takes Matt to the attic where Steve has collected newspaper clippings and interconnected them to reveal what he calls the devil's pattern. He shows Matt a clip of a missing girl, but now that he has the devil trapped, she has returned home recently. He expects more such incidents to happen. When Matt asks who has been calling him, Steve dodges the question and explains something is coming for the devil. He also admits to seeing and hearing things. Suddenly, Matt gets a nosebleed. Steve says the devil doesn't want to be down there and is trying to find ways to get out. He feels Matt and Karen showing up after 2 years is the devil's work. Steve suddenly pulls the gun out from his pants and asks where Karen is. Meanwhile, Karen walks to the basement toward the door with the cross with the intention of releasing the trapped man, but she starts feeling uneasy. She takes down the cross when the voice asks if someone is there. When Karen replies, the voice pleads with her to let him go back to his family. Karen equips herself with a hammer to break the padlock, but she hesitates. This triggers the man, and he suddenly changes his demeanor and even laughs, mocking her and calling her by her name, which scares Karen. Just then, she hears the gun clicking. Steve ushers Karen out of the basement at gunpoint and makes her and Matt sit at the table across from him. He holds them at gunpoint and questions Karen about what the man said to her. But Matt asks Steve to put the gun away, to which Steve complies. Steve is sure Karen felt a presence in the basement, which she doesn't deny, but she is too scared to say anything. Suddenly the light flickers, which makes Steve restless. He warns them not to go anywhere before leaving. They all wait as the atmosphere gets tense, and Steve gets more paranoid until he falls asleep. Steve soon wakes up, almost startled by the noise of the static on TV, and finds Matt and Karen asleep on the couch. Steve soon leaves to sit in the basement near the door and taunts the man behind the door, which makes the light flicker. Matt soon wakes up and goes to the attic where he finds an old newspaper with a report about a car crash on Christmas. Meanwhile, Karen follows Steve down to the basement. Steve cryptically reveals information about an accident that claimed the lives of his wife Sarah and his daughter. He blames it all on the devil. He then challenges Karen to open the door and prove herself. But before she can do anything, Steve renders her unconscious and locks her in the basement, stating it is for her own good. He also realizes Matt is in the attic, so he locks the attic too. Matt, however, pushes his way out of the attic and calls out for Steve, who has lost it after the last phone call. In the basement, Karen regains consciousness and finds herself chained. She tries freeing herself and keeps looking back as if she's being watched. Steve runs throughout the house looking for someone when he sees a man holding a stuffed animal bunny and asking for his help to stop the bleeding as a stream of blood flows through his hands. Steve further sees Sarah wearing a blindfold. Steve cries, yearning to be with her, but realizes it is not Sarah and prepares to shoot her. But Matt's voice breaks his trance and he finds Matt and Karen standing before him. Matt talks Steve into giving up the gun. He admits he wasn't there for him, but promises he will be here now. When Steve gives in, Matt takes the gun and rushes to the basement. Karen and Steve follow. Karen tries to stop him and tells him there is something in the basement. She can't explain and asks him not to go there, but Matt assures her it is going to be okay. Steve arrives and tries to dissuade Matt from opening the door, but Matt is persistent. When he doesn't back off, Steve stabs Matt. Distraught, Steve runs upstairs while Karen cries as Matt struggles to breathe and soon falls unconscious. Enraged by what Steve did to Matt, Karen goes upstairs and shoots Steve. Karen walks back to the basement to sit with Matt when the man behind the door tries to convince her to open the door by saying that there is still a chance they can save Matt. But she refuses to do so, which makes the man laugh as he says he almost got through. After getting a distress call, 2 police officers, Alan and Ben, arrive at Steve's house. After searching the house, Alan finds Steve's body. Alan cautiously walks to the basement and hears the man's voice from behind the door to help him out. But Karen shoots him before he can do anything. The sounds of gunshots alert Ben and he rushes to the basement where he hears the man's pleas from behind the door. He looks at Karen in disbelief as she nods, trying to warn him against opening the door. But Ben overlooks everything and proceeds to break the locks. As soon as Ben opens the door, a little girl walks past them and hops her way out of the front door. That's a wrap for the horror recap of the movie I Trapped the Devil. If you're a fan of horror movies in recap format, click the subscribe button. Arm yourself with some eggnog and stay tuned for more thrilling recaps coming your way.